Hello and welcome back to Kensuke's Kingdom. Today we are going to be reading the second part of chapter 6. When we left off, Michael was cuddled up at the back of the cave with Stella as a storm broke overhead. It was fully 4 days before the storm blew itself out, but even during the worst of it, I would find my fish and fruit breakfast waiting for me every morning under my tin, which he had now wedged tight in under the same shelf of rock. Stella and I kept to the shelter of our cave. All we could do was watch as the rain came lashing down outside. I looked on, awestruck at the power of the vast waves rolling in from the open sea, curling, tumbling and exploding as they broke onto the beach, as if they were trying to batter the island into pieces and then suck us all out to sea. I thought often of my mother and father and the Peggy Sue and wondered where they were. I just hoped the typhoon, for that was what I was witnessing, had passed them by. Then, one morning, as suddenly as the storm had begun, it stopped. The sun blazed down from a clear blue sky, and the forest symphony started up where it had left off. I ventured out. The whole island steamed and dripped. I went at once up Watch Hill to see if I could see a ship, perhaps blown off course, or maybe sheltering in the lee of the island. There was nothing there. That was a disappointment, but at least I found my beacon had not collapsed. It was sodden, of course, but still intact. Everything was sodden. There could be no fire now until it had dried out. The air was hot and heavy all that day. It was difficult to move at all, difficult to breathe. Stella could only lie and pant. The only place to cool off was the sea, so I spent most of that day lolling lazily in the water, throwing the occasional stick for Stella to keep her happy. I was lying in the sea, just floating there and daydreaming, when I heard the old man's voice. He was hurrying down the beach, yelling at us as he came and waving his stick wildly in the air. "Yumaro, Abunai, dangerous, understand? No swim." He did not seem to be angry with me, as he had been before, but he was clearly upset about something. I looked around me. The sea was still heaving in, but gently now, breathing out the last of the storm, the waves falling limp and exhausted onto the beach. I could see no particular danger. "Why not?" I called back. "What's the matter?" He had dropped his stick on the beach and was wading out through the surf towards me. "No swim. Damide Abunai, no swim." Then he had me by the arm and was leading me forcibly out of the sea. His grip was vice-like. There was little point in struggling. Only when we were back on the beach did he at last release me. He stood there, breathless for a few moments. "Dangerous, very bad. Abunai." He was pointing out to sea. "No swim, very bad. No swim. You understand?" He looked me hard in the eye, leaving me in no doubt that this was not meant as advice. This was a command that I should obey. Then he turned and walked off into the forest, retrieving his stick as he went. Stella ran after him, but I called her back. I felt at that moment like defying him openly. I would charge back into the sea and frolic as noisily, as provocatively as I could. That would show him. I was bristling at the outrageous unfairness of it all. First, he would not let me light my fire. Then I was banished to one end of the island. And now I wasn't even allowed to swim. I wanted to call him every name I could think of, but I didn't. I didn't go swimming in the sea again either. I capitulated. I gave in, because I had to. I needed his food, his water. Until my secret beacon of wood dried out, until the next ship came by, I would have to do as he said. I had no choice. I did make a man-sized sculpture of him lying in the sand outside my cave, and I did jump up and down on him in my fury and frustration. It made me feel a little better, but not much. Until now, except for occasional gut-wrenching pangs of homesickness and loneliness, I had by and large managed to keep my spirits up. but not anymore. My beacon stayed obstinately damp. Every day I went up Watch Hill hoping to sight a ship, and every day the sea stretched away on all sides, empty. I felt more and more isolated, more and more wretched. In the end, I decided to go up onto Watch Hill anymore, that it just was not worth it. Instead, I stayed in my cave and curled up on my sleeping mat for long hours during the day. I lay there, drowning in misery, thinking of nothing but the hopelessness of it all, how I would never get off this island, how I would die here, and my mother and father would never even know what had happened to me. No one would, except the old man, the madman, my captor, my persecutor. The weather stayed heavy and humid. How I longed to plunge into the ocean, but I dared not. He'd be watching me for sure. With every day that passed, in spite of the fish and fruit and water he continued to bring me, I came to hate the old man more and more. Dejected and depressed I may have been, but I was angry too, and gradually this anger fueled in me a new determination to escape, and the determination revived my spirits. Once again, I went on my daily trek up Watch Hill. I began to collect a fresh cache of dry leaves and twigs from the forest edge and squirreled them away in a deep cleft in the rock so that I would always be sure they were dry when the time came. My beacon had dried out at last. I built it up higher and higher. When I had done all I could, I sat and waited for the time to come, as I knew it must. Day after day, week after week, I sat up on Watch Hill, my fireglass polished in my pocket, my beacon ready and waiting. Okay, we're going to leave it there, boys and girls.